So guys, welcome. It's Friday. It's not quite Friday the 13th this week, but we've got some exciting news. We've got Craig here, Craig Robinson from Robinson Bottom Partners. That's going to run through some pretty cool stuff that's starting to emerge now regarding the JobKeeper program. So we're going to take around sort of 15 minutes. And once we've finished this presentation, this will be posted and you'll be able to make any questions through Facebook. And if you're coming through from Craig's team, then obviously they're able to take questions as well next week. And the next 2 weeks are going to be pretty hectic for everybody in getting this JobKeeper underway. So do have some patience with your relative bookkeepers and accountants. But today we're going to go through the things that you need to know that you may not know and some of the things that you need to be doing. So without further ado, let's give a big warm welcome to Craig. So good morning, Craig, and thanks for spending the time this morning.
Morning. Thanks for having me, Pete. It's good to be on. It's been a hectic period already, and I can see the next couple of weeks, like you say, being very hectic with these applications, which do open Monday. There's been a lot of media hype around this, and a lot of the rules have been coming out of recent times. But the applications don't actually open until Monday. We haven't even seen the forms yet, or the actual the way to do it, but that will be Monday happening, and it's gonna actually happen through a portal, an online portal. So us as tax agents, we have a direct portal with the ATO. Businesses do have business portals if they're registered. You do have to be registered through the new MyGov ID and their RAM technology. So if you're not, if you don't have that access in your own business, then you will need to use your agent or bookkeeper potentially. So the process is there. We just haven't fully seen it yet, but it's about to fire up.
No, fantastic. So for real, the point is there, make sure you're either in contact with you guys or if they're not working with you, make sure their bookkeeper or their accountant is fully on it. And if they're not, make sure they are, because apparently there's a window, Craig, I believe, like it opens on the 20th, then you've got till a certain date. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's to get in early. You can enter the system at any stage over the next 6 months, but if you want to achieve or get your April payment from the government, which will be paid in May, you've got from the 20th of April, which is Monday, through to the end of April to get the initial application in and approved. Now, if you miss that window, it doesn't mean you're ineligible going forward. It just means you won't get back paid for April. So when you're in at any point forward, but you may not be able to look back depending upon timing. So if you've been paying employees and you are an eligible business, you need in the next 2 weeks to get that initial application in and approved.
So don't hang about, get your shit sorted out and get in there. That's the best advice you can give. For whatever means, try and get yourself logged in.
Most definitely. I mean, if you're going to go for it, I guess what you need to understand is, are you an eligible employer? Do you have eligible employees? You've got to get through the criteria. If you are, there is no point hanging around until afterwards, because you'll miss that initial cash boost coming out of this initiative.
Yeah, okay, cool. Well, let's just bust that up a bit and break that down slightly. So if we look at eligible business first before we go into the eligible employee. So I know there's a bit of confusion of how to qualify. You know, I've heard things, Craig, as regarding, it's year on year, month on month. It's taken off your BAS. But if we just run through the qualifying part first, that'd be great.
Yeah, there's some simple entry and then more complicated if you've got other circumstances. So it's quite simply, you get to compare a month from March, April, May, June, etc., month by month, this year compared to the same month last year. And if you're down by 30%, you're in. So that's the easy one. So for example, right, last March, you look at your figures out of 0 or whatever your system is. If this March is down by 30%, you're in. That's the easy one. If you don't have monthly figures, which I'm sure you can produce for this, you can do it on a quarterly basis. So you can do it for this quarter, April, May and June. And same thing, if you're down by 30%, you're in. 30% is the small business market, by the way. There's other ones for charities and big business, but we're assuming we're all small business here. If you have other circumstances, such as you're a new business or you started within the last year, you don't have comparative month by month or quarter information for last year, then there's alternative tests. Now, what they are exactly, we don't know yet. There's a bit of information saying that the ATO will use their discretion. You know, you might have, for example, businesses you've worked with that have been on a big growth trajectory. So last year was low and this year's much higher. So there's going to have to be some other information around either budgeting or, you know, you've forecasted this and you've dropped that on actual by 30%. It's still a 30% number, we think, but that's going to be a whole different process. And until we see the applications around that, just not sure how that's going to work.
So that's something I really should keep abreast of. And as this unfolds, and obviously the application, the qualifying process is to be fully in front of this so we know how to play the game. Because so what I'm hearing, it may be a case that if you were 30% down on the previous month because you haven't got records going back the following year, you may be able to put a case forward to be able to say that your drop's been within this year, but it's not fully open yet for what that is.
Exactly. You know, and it's even the case where you've bought a business halfway through the year or things like that, or you've taken over employees. So it's going into more specific circumstances. So they're a bit more in depth and a bit more involved, and the application process, I'm sure, will be a little bit longer there. Probably take more time for the ATO to get it approved. Don't really know because we haven't got a marker yet, but certainly as of next week that'll start to come through. But if you sort of don't tick the easy bucket, then I think you probably need to get onto the ATO early, register it, you know, start talking to them. So at least if they take longer to get it approved, it's on them, and they will probably then back pay still. So it's just around timing.
So whichever way you think you're going to qualify or not, just get in, and then at least you've registered, and then as it does unfold, you've got potentially a chance of maybe getting that back paid. So I think
if you don't fit into the easy bucket, if you've got 1 month on last year and you're down by 30%, you're straight in. So that should be straightforward on that aspect. But it might take a little bit of negotiation, back and forth discussions with the ATO if you don't, fall into that easy category.
Yeah, okay. No, cool. So let's move on to employees then. So I've seen these forms floating around where the first part you fill out with the employer and then the second part the employee. I've heard things like bookkeepers and accountants sort of wanting to send these direct to the employee. My view on it is that handle it through one set of communication. So yeah, the employer fills it all out first. If you could just explain a bit more about that form and what sort of employees qualify. Because I know there's some confusion between full-time, part-time, casual, and the qualifying period. If you could just run through that quickly, Craig, that'd be great.
Yeah. Well, this is the important part, because this is why you get paid and what you have to pass on to your employees. So if you're permanent, full-time, part-time employees, 1st of March, you're okay, you're in. Where it gets a little bit trickier, I guess, is around casuals. And so if you've got casual employees, they've got to be long-term, and they've got to have, and this is going to be a definition, a regular and systematic basis of employment over that casual period. Now, we don't know what that's going to be yet. They've put some very vague examples on the ATO website, but that will be the tricky one, whether it fits regular and systematic work for casuals. So just putting that aside for the moment, if you do get eligible employees, what you do need to do is a nomination form. And the nomination form is something that the business fills out. You put the business name, the employee has their details, their address, etc. So it's them accepting nomination for the JobKeeper payment through you, or through you as the business owner, and they have to sign off on that. And you have to have that form done, signed, and back in your filing by the end of the month, so before end of April. And if your tax agent is going to lodge this for you, your tax agent needs to hold that form too. It doesn't go to the ATO, but it's something as a record-keeping requirement that you have to hold. What we believe is in the application process through the portal that you will have to nominate those individuals. So if you have, for example, 6 employees that have all signed and said, yes, you're my JobKeeper employer, you will need to put those details into the system, lodge that to the ATO, and somehow they're going to match this up with single touch payroll information around eligibility. So there will be a cross-checking mechanism somewhere.
Yeah, okay, right. So it's important to get that paperwork filled in now. Make sure you've got that on hand because that's going to be required at some later stage.
You've got to hold it by the end of the month.
Yeah.
It's important to decide who is in and who is eligible in your employee base. If they're full, permanent, regular, no problem. It's easy. If you stood them down, for example, and you want to bring them back in for this purpose, you can. So this is where it gets trickier. If people aren't still employed on a sort of normal or semi-normal basis at the moment, the trick will be in determining who's eligible. And the way the rules have been written and the information that's come out from the government around it, it's saying that you can't necessarily pick and choose. They're saying it's an all-in approach. So, for example, if you've got 12 casuals and you believe they are regular and systematic, they're all in. You don't get to say, well, I like those 6 they're in. I'm not, those 6 I'm not worried about type thing. They're all in. Now, there's still some conjecture about that. We don't know, but the information from the office says that if you're applying and you're going to be a JobKeeper, the employer, or your eligible employees, if they accept your nomination form, must be in.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
It does get a bit complicated because an employee could accept a nomination form from one employer, it might not be you, so they might decline yours. So there's circumstances where they work for different employers. They can only do it once. So one employer becomes the administrator of their payment, if you like.
So that will come, I suppose, complicated if you're employing multiple part-time people and they're doing 20 hours for you and 20 hours for somebody else. That's where it's going to get quite confusing. But I suppose if you're a mainstream employer employing one person and you're the direct employer, then I suppose that's going to be a bit of an easier process.
Straightforward. It's where you're a lot of casuals, maybe kids, part-timers, etc. That's where it becomes more complicated. That's where you'll need help, and you need to try to define who fits that regular and systematic basis to get them into the system.
Yeah. So that would be more your full-time people, your full-time part. So if you're full-time or full-time part-time and you've been working with the employer for 12 months, then that's pretty much a slam dunk for the criteria.
They're the easy ones.
They're the easy ones, yeah.
Look, this is a big announcement. There's a lot of money that's going to come out from this. And what they're trying to do is that they try to make it easy, but when the rules get written, it's never easy. There's so many idiosyncrasies between business models, between the way people employ, etc. So they're the easy ones, the sort of permanents, the ones that are there all the time. If you've dropped income 30% last month, easy, you're in. It's all the individual circumstances around that where it's going to be a lot trickier.
Yeah, no, cool, makes sense. So we've talked about the qualification and the dates from a business point of view. We talked about the employee and the various forms that have been filled in and what we've got to do there. Is there anything else, Craig, that we need to be aware of as of today? I know it'll change next week and we'll keep this thing updated as we move forwards. Excuse me. Is there anything else that we've missed that we've not talked about that I've not asked a question about?
I think one thing that needs to be understood, one thing that does need to be understood is around if you're applying for this and you are eligible, you'll get notification in the next week or so, a couple of weeks. You won't get paid till May. So the people that you're nominating for, the employees you're nominating for, who do get accepted, you need to pay them their wages for the month of April if you're nominating them for that month. So if you're standing them back up or bringing them back in line after April, it's not it'll go forward and it won't be a big deal. But if you're eligible and you're getting paid for them, you have to pay them that $750 per week or $1,500 per fortnight, what it is, for that month of April before the end of April. So the timing around payment, you as the business owner have to fund it until you get reimbursed by the government.
So you're going to be roughly, at the best, a month out any particular time regarding handing it out until it starts to kick in.
This is the interesting thing about the way they've written these laws is because it's April that we're trying to get paid for now through this system, April's not finished. So you're projecting your income for April if you're not already ticked off on March, because you might not get in March, but you can project April and get in. If you've done the eligibility on that, you're in. If you've got eligible employees, you're in. And the HO says, right, we're going to pay this money. And for whatever reason, you're ineligible, or they work out later on that you're ineligible, they can pull that first payment back. So they're not saying that you get to keep that necessarily. They've written it in a way that says this is not guaranteed. We're paying it to you sort of in good faith. But if for some reason you're out, they can pull it back off you or the employee.
Right, got you.
And they're always there after paying in arrears.
Yeah.
So for the month, you'll pay your employees for the month of May. Then in June, you'll get your payment from the government, et cetera, for the next 6 months.
No, fair enough. This is an interesting question that's just come through, which I'll ask this. You might not have an answer to it. But let's say you actually do qualify for the month of March or April. So you're 30% down, your team have qualified, your company's qualified, so you're going to get paid. The following month, sales are back up again. So let's say you're falling then 15 or 20% behind, not 30%. What happens then?
Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Once you're in, you're in. So once you're eligible, you are eligible. What you do need to do is you need to do monthly reporting. Now, what they've told us is that the reporting is for statistics only. So once you're in, you don't get kicked out. The only way you leave the system is if you choose to, or your employee chooses to no longer be part of it. So that's once you're in.
Right.
That's it. So if you're down for a month of April on projections, which gets you in, and you do fall below last April by 30, next month you can do whatever you like. It doesn't matter. Apparently you're in.
So pretty good reason to get in early and to make sure that if you are down for that particular month, that you make sure you get registered, even though you may think you may jump back in a following month's time, to get in and make sure you get yourself registered.
That's the way it is. Now, obviously, you can't manipulate it so that you're down because you're holding things off. It's still got to be the normal course, and there's integrity rules around it. So, if there's any whiff of shenanigans just to get it, the ATO will come at you.
Yeah.
It's not for that purpose, but if you are genuinely down, even if they release restrictions next month and we're back, sort of to some sort of normality, you're fine. You can do whatever you like.
You're still in.
If you can't get in now, so for example, this opens next week and you can't get in now, and May you can't get in, but all of a sudden June you're going to have a month and you get in from June, we're still eligible from there forwards.
Right.
So you can see the remaining period.
Yeah. So again, let's get in front of it. Let's get in as soon as we can, and then once you're in, you're in. I think that's the message that I'm hearing through all of this, Craig, is get your shit in order, understand what you need to do, get your paperwork in line, get on the same page with your accountant or bookkeeper, because they're going to have to submit it through their various tax or BAS portals, and then really stay in front of it. Otherwise, you've got no chance of getting in if you don't do the hard work up front. So there's a bit of jiggery pokery to be able to make it work, I would call it, as regarding to be able to fill out the paperwork, understand what's going on, and this is a great start for people to understand from where they are today. So I appreciate you coming on. But I've just got another question that's come through actually as I'm talking to you here is, so the 20 hours per week. So regarding the 20 hours per week, which it may well be, so if you've got a dude that you're paying $7.50 a week and it averages out at $31 an hour, does it mean, and it's an interesting question, that he has to just work for that amount of value? So if he's getting paid $7.50, and that could equate to either, depending on his hourly rate or his salary, 15 hours or 35 hours, how does that work if you want them to work the full week? Do you just top them up, or is it capped?
Yeah, well, this is where it's very interesting, because you've got people that work less than hours than that, and you've got people that work more. So if you work more, and they're probably still employed, like they may not have been stood down, but even if you do bring them back, and say, for example, they normally get $1,000 a week, but they do a full week, you pay them $1,000, they still work a full week, you get $750 from the government to top you up.
Right.
You still pay out the $250 shortfall in that scenario.
Yeah, okay.
And this is where superannuation becomes interesting, because there's ordinary times earnings when they're earning it. You still got to pay super, etc. But then you got the flip side where, you might have a casual who normally gets $500 a week, who is eligible. They're going to get $750 a week. They don't have to earn that. They don't have to work more than $500. They don't have to, I'm not even sure they have to work any hours if there's no work for them.
Right. Okay.
So they get paid their money based on the fact that they were working, they were doing something, and they are eligible.
Right. Okay.
This is where it's by design. They've got great ideas, but when it comes to concepts and actually the way it rolls out, some people are winning here and some people are missing out.
Yeah.
And the ones that we probably haven't touched on yet is the business owners that are not on wages.
Very good point, actually. I forgot to ask that question earlier.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to just run through that as regarding, so if you're a trust or a sole trader and so forth, yeah.
Very important. Sole traders can get in for themselves, so that's a tick. If you've got a partnership and they're not on wages, which you don't normally have in partnerships, one partner can nominate only, one person. So if you've got a partnership of two, one misses out, you got three, etc. They miss out. So one only.
Right, one.
If you're a trust, you can have one beneficiary that's nominated. So it's got to be an adult beneficiary that has something to do with the input of the income from the trust. So basically, when you have a structure, a company, a director, you can have one. So you can only have in any of those structures one owner, director, whatever you like to call them, that has a direct input can be nominated and get that money, which goes to the business, but you cannot nominate any more than one.
Got you. Okay. So that's something that must have opened up just recently, because I know prior to talking a couple of weeks ago, that wasn't on the table at that time.
It was, and it came in just shortly after the initial announcements. They said, oh, yeah, well, that's not probably the intent, so we'll allow it. But then they let one.
Yeah.
Like if you've got 2, 3, 5 partners, you can only get it once. So this is where, like I say, it's an inequitable distribution of money. But I guess it is very difficult, and political sides put aside, I think it's very difficult to get this money into the system in an easy way. So they're trying to do it through businesses, but at the end of the day, there's some people that miss out and some people that get more than what they would have normally working.
Yeah. Okay. No, cool. That makes sense. It's got another question again coming here as well as regarding how's the payments made? Because I know I've had a couple of questions that have come through. Is it similar to not paying your BAS and holding back, obviously, like we did with the PAYG, or is it done as a direct payment into the business bank account? How does that work?
Yeah, in the form, and like I said, we haven't seen the form yet, but we know that you've got to put your bank account details, and the payments will be made monthly to that nominated bank account of the business.
Right.
So it could just be cash in at the $1,500 per fortnight per eligible person, etc. And the employees get paid by you being the business owner or the employer as per normal through normal payroll.
Right.
You've paid them already. You're getting the money from the government in arrears, so you've got cash flow shortfall to consider. And you need to consider if you're a big employer whether you can sustain that cash flow shortfall.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. And so basically, we're just playing that, I suppose, the bank or the aggregator and so forth for the ATO. So I suppose the difference between job seeker and JobKeeper is JobKeeper getting paid a bit more as a team member. And if you can make use of that team member to do some work for you, great. If not, send them home. And they've got a paid holiday more than they would be on job seeker. But I think the thing to understand I think I'm picking up from this, the ownership or the responsibility remains with the employer. So even though it might be a get out of jail free card for, let's call it, some income without standing down or paying out redundancies, you still own that employee, and all HR rules stay in place. So you are fully responsible for that team member.
Totally. Look, you become the banker for a period of time, and you become the administrator. And you've got to still do all your payroll, etc. You've got to withhold tax where it's appropriate, depending on their earnings, etc. So you've still got your normal obligations around that. It's just that you're getting a reimbursement, an uplift from the government on something where you'd sort of be doing it normally, but you've just got to pay them, or potentially some people, more than what they would have got normally working.
Yeah. No, good. I think we've covered some pretty good ground there, Craig, this morning.
Look, it's come a long way, and as of next week, this is where the rubber hits the road. So we will know what the application form looks like. We will know how long it's going to take to do the application, and what the ATO's method of sort of ticking off on the eligibility of the employees is going to be, because at this stage we're still not clear on it. But there will be a bit of work in this. There will be a process. So if you're not keen to do that process yourself, or you don't understand it, then reach out. We're happy to help out. I think it's something you need to do quickly and get it right, and just get that tick from the ATO so you're in. So if you are in, then like I said, you're locked in for the remaining 6 months, and that's going to be important for a lot of businesses. Perfect.
So I appreciate your time this morning, Craig. So just to recap, get in early, get your shit sorted out, get your paperwork done properly. If you've got someone that's that's maybe not handling it the right way on your behalf, then give you guys a call, because it sounds like you're all over it. And let's ensure that we all work together and move forwards through this thing. And hopefully very, very shortly it's over anyhow. And it was just a distant, blurred memory that we want to try and forget. So I appreciate you hanging out, and it's good to jam with you, Craig, and so forth. You know your shit, which is good. And if it's okay with you, I won't mind hanging out again next week as and when we get some further updates.
Yeah, most definitely. Look, pleasure. Next week will be interesting. This particular initiative has been likened to when they brought GST in back in 2000. That's the sort of change we're talking about, the difference in reporting. So it might be a blur in our memory, but it's going to be quite a lasting one. And look, at the end of the day, we're going to have some pretty serious ramifications out of this as business owners once we're through this, because we're all going to pay for this. So we've got to remember that. These handouts are coming, whether you are eligible or not. The handouts are coming in big, big dollars. They're going to get that back at some stage. So, take it where you can get it. If you're eligible, get it. Not in a way that, is manufactured, but get your entitlements to help, because we all will be paying for it in the long run.
Yeah, no, cool. Makes perfect sense. Craig, a pleasure once again. And we'll hang out again next week if that's okay with you, and we'll keep this thing moving forwards.
Fantastic. Look forward to it. Stay safe, everyone. Have a good weekend, and we'll see what the next couple of weeks brings.
Fantastic. Cheers, guys. Take care.
Bye.